to WAVE Channel 20, Auburn Community Television, and this episode of Meet the Artist. I'm Lucinda Laughlin, your host. Meet the Artist is supported by the North Auburn Artist to introduce artists in our local community. Today, our guest is relatively new in our artist community, although she has lived in Auburn for quite some time. She works in multimedia using the collage process. I think you're going to find that her work is absolutely fabulous. And what's even more interesting is that she has a fabulous story about how she found the artist within. Mary Chris, it's so glad to see you. I'm so glad you could join us.
I'm very happy to be here.
So let's start out about that journey in finding the artist within, because this is a very interesting story.
Well, yeah, the first collage that I ever did was, I didn't even know the word collage. I was going to school and I wanted to brighten up my dull apartment, and so I started cutting out little magazine pieces and pasting them on the inset of my door. That was a double door from my bedroom to the hallway of the apartment building, and I made this whole collage and it looked great. And then one day when I was coming back from school, I saw a man walking down the hall with my door under his arm, and there went my collage, and I'm like, whoa. So I found out they were replacing the regular doors with fire doors.
Oh my gosh, so your piece of art just walked out the door and who knows what happened to it?
It was gone, but I decided if I ever did a collage again, I was going to do it on paper.
Well, that would make sense after that experience. Now though, when you were first starting out though, you told me about how you actually read magazines, and that's how you really started to kind of nurture that artist inside of you.
Well, yeah, I got real interested in art, and I would like to do it, but I was raising two kids, and I worked, and I took a bus to work, and so I got a subscription to American Artist magazine, and I would read it from cover to cover every day going to and from work, and just loved it, and really loved the collage ideas, but the painting, everything. But I never got a chance to do much. Every now and then I would try something, but I didn't really get to do anything until I moved up to this area, and I had time, and I decided to get serious about it.
And now, you were originally from the LA area.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a time when you ever did any acrylic paintings?
No, not really. The only thing I did was oil.
Oh, okay.
But that was in Los Angeles when I was in school again, and I would go towards school, and there was a Grumbacher store, and I would look in the window and go, oh wow, that is so awesome. So I went in, I bought a couple brushes, a canvas board, and a set of oil paints, and I went to MacArthur Park and sat in the grass and started painting. I didn't even know I don't even know how I clean my brushes. I didn't know how to do anything.
Probably did like I did. I just threw them away.
I probably did.
I decided I didn't like oil, so that was like the end of that.
Well, then it was really interesting because I kept those oils, and they were like in a box somewhere, and like a few years ago I pulled them out, and I thought, wow, I wonder if they're still good. I had to break open the tubes, but I could use them, and I did a palette painting with them.
Oh. So, wow, you just never ever lose your materials, do you?
No, I guess try and keep them all.
So then, last year something happened, though, that kind of changed your life a little bit as an artist, and that was going on the tour.
Yeah, I went on the studio tour last year, and I was talking to an artist in Rockland. I think her Ginny Krebs, I believe her name is, and she looked at some of my stuff. I said, oh, I do collage too, because she did a mixed media, and she goes, oh, you ought to be on the tour next year. And that was enough inspiration for me. I went, you know what, I'm going to work towards that. And I did. I started doing more work, and I actually got a studio, and I'm going to be on the tour this year.
And that is so exciting. So we're basically coming a whole year, and now you have gone from doing it, but not really full-time and putting all that effort in it, and now this year has passed, and it's kind of like we've taken the top out of the genie bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
You have exploded on the scene.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the collage process that you use, because you do various things in creating these collages, and I've learned so much about it. I too did a little bit of collage work back when I was in high school and college, but never to the level of where you are taking it. Let's talk about, you do the torn wax paper, and this is kind of interesting. So tell me first about using wax paper and how you actually create your own paper by painting it. All right, so tell me about that.
Well, I take wax paper and just tear off a bit. Now, actually, what I have used it for is like maybe experimenting and doing some acrylic paintings and using it as a palette. And so then I tear it up later and use it as part of collage.
Now, is this the wax paper that we just go in the store and buy?
I get mine at the dollar store for $1 for a wax paper box.
And then you paint it with different paints?
Acrylic
paint. And is it very thick that you apply to it?
I do both.
Okay.
Thick, will be really good for like a sky, but then thin, you can almost layer the colors.
Now, when you tear it, because we have an example of that, and this is confrontation, and so is this actually tearing, or are you cutting it with scissors?
I'm tearing it.
Are you tearing it?
Some I think I've cut, like if I want to get it flat against like a figure, like if I wanted to get it flat against that panther, I would cut it so that it would go up against him.
This is almost a mosaic type of a look that you've done here with all these different colors within it. And you can see it. I love what you've done with the sky, because you've got the clouds in there, and then you also have the blue of the sky. It's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And it's all, so now when you do this, do you do any type of a sketch first on your paper, and then you come in and put the wax paper on it to conform with that sketch?
The only sketch that I did was the panther and the kitty.
Okay. And the rest of it you just filled in as you're going along, just through instinct. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the fact. And then what's also interesting, now on the cat, it looks like there's actually some words on it. So where did that come from?
Well, all those little pieces, they're little tiny squares from the Monopoly game at Safeway. When you tear off the top and bottom to open it up, those are the tops and bottoms of the playing pieces.
So paper in your house, it never goes in the trash. It just gets put someplace for you to use later. That is absolutely fascinating. I would love that. Recycling.
Exactly.
And the next one that we have is Come Sail Away, which is also using wax paper. So, and it looks so different than Confrontation, because it seems like there's a lot more flow, not as much exact line. And how did you achieve that, particularly in the water?
In the water, I would take the painted wax paper and I would cut it kind of like waves. Cut it little, I don't know what you call it, like waves, and then paste it on. And then, but the boat itself and the man in it, they were like cut out of watercolor paper and painted. And so put on top.
And so you're actually doing the painting on another medium and then bringing it onto this picture.
Yeah.
And that's, the boat would have been the last thing that went on the picture?
Yeah.
So now so are you doing any painting over the wax paper? Or is this just the straight up wax paper that's been painted before?
Yeah, it's just the straight up wax paper. I don't paint over it.
Yeah, because it's so amazing, because the way you have the setting sun and that reflection on the water. And
I had to pick out the exact kind of paper to fit to make the reflection.
Absolutely. That is amazing, because you would think that you would just gone in and had painted over that, but you've actually cut and put that in place. I love it. And I love the sunset on it. Assuming it's a sunset, I guess it could be a sunrise.
Either
one.
It could be either one. It's based off of a song called Come Sail Away, and you probably have heard it recently on the radio.
Yes.
And that just inspired me to do that painting. I wanted to do, they have a part in there where that actually Come Sail Away refers to a alien spaceship. He says they're not angels, they're alien, they're men who have a spaceship, and they say, "Come sail away, lad." And I thought maybe putting the spaceship in there would be a little bit obscure for some people.
That is absolutely amazing, because I have listened to that song and I never picked that up from it. Just goes to show that we don't listen to the words, do we?
No.
But I love the fact that you've taken it and now you have created this. And that's one of the things you do a lot of. You have songs, and you have used those as inspiration for your work. So another one we have that is also the torn wax paper is On the Wings of Love. And that is this one.
Yes.
And this one, again, it's hard to, again, so is this just one sheet of wax paper, or again, have you cut up pieces of it?
Well, here are pieces that are actually torn or cut. And this is one big piece that I put in just to have a little bit different texture. And the birds are little torn pieces of magazine paper. I believe the pattern there is from a lady's pants in Vogue magazine.
Which, again, that you could see that in something, what I would consider kind of an obscure image that has nothing to do with what you're doing, and you're saying, oh, that would work absolutely perfect for these wings. And it does. It's just absolutely perfect. Then what did you use in order to make the mountain?
I just torn gray paper from magazine.
And how about the white?
The white was from, I think I just had a big piece of white in there and put the gray over it.
Oh, okay. Well, like again, it's so when you look at these, it looks to me like you have gone in and you have actually painted these, and then it becomes even more remarkable because you realize you have pieced this together. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, another area that we've talked about is you do use mixed media, and we've had some of that because in your Come Sail Away, you have used different medias in that because you've used your watercolor. And you have several examples of using that. And one of the ones that I love is the hatchling. And this is an image that they're using in the Placer Art Studio Tour image for you, isn't it? Is that the hatchling that's in that?
No, it was a pelican.
Oh, it was the pelican. Well, I love the hatchling as well, and I do love the pelican. So tell us about the hatchling, because you have some really interesting elements to this.
Well, it started out as I wanted to use eggshell. I thought it would be interesting. So I put eggshell on it, and then I had it a certain color, and it just didn't look right, and I tried a different color and it didn't look right. So then I just started pasting pieces of colorful magazine paper over it. And then I had a piece that looked like the bird's body, and so I made the bird, but the background, there wasn't enough contrast. It was all different colors with the bird on top of it. So I decided to paint over the other colors and just have the bird stand out. So that worked pretty good, and I have tissue paper for the water, and that's how it came to be.
I love the fact that you've used eggshell. And then, because it brings that texture in, and then also just the color that you chose to use on it. It just really draws the eye. And again, the layering that you're able to achieve is absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you.
The next one we have is Soul Searching, and which is a lighthouse. And I understand this actually comes from a song as well? Or is it a...
Well, there is one called Soul Searching by Styx, I believe the group is.
And so that was kind of your inspiration? And so tell me about that inspiration and then how we ended up with this beautiful picture.
Well, you know, the song was just a pretty song. There was nothing in it that suggested a lighthouse or a boat on the shore or a woman looking out to sea, but that just kind of came about. And I started out with kind of like the hatchling. I have like bright colored papers as the sky and as the trees, but I actually painted over them with acrylic. And the top of the lighthouse is a cutout picture of an actual lighthouse I took a picture of in Washington State.
So this is your photography coming into your artwork in this form.
Yes, exactly.
Now, one of the things we haven't talked about in all of this is how you, for lack of a better word, stick this paper or stick these things to the board or the canvas that you're using. So what product do you use in order to do that?
Well, when I first started out, I had pieces of board that I used, and I used glue. And
just regular glue?
Just regular, the stick glue that you buy, Elmer's glue that you buy in the store. And that seemed to work, but then I would notice after a couple months that it would come loose. So, you know, I can't use glue. So I found the matte media but I watch lots of YouTubes and get inspiration from what other people do, and I saw many people use the matte media, which is acrylic. So it's basically making a plastic cover when it dries.
So then the acrylic, do you put that over the board first? Or
I put it down first. Maybe I put it down. Sometimes I put it on the back of what I'm going to stick down, depending how thick it is. And then I put it over too. So it's like completely covered.
Now I'm going to go back again to confrontation. Now once you have completed a work like this, do you put any type of fixative or something over that to protect it?
Well, as I go and place them down, I'm pasting the acrylic medium over it. So that is basically the cover.
So then you don't have to worry about it, possibly scraping up against something and tearing it or something like that.
It shouldn't.
All right, so let's go back again to the lighthouse, and I love, again, you've painted in a boat in there. And what medium did you use on that? Is that acrylics as well, or?
No, I don't remember. I painted in the rope that comes off the boat. I think the boat is actually just a piece of cut out paper, which I put ink on to make, to draw the outline of it.
So you're just experimenting with all kinds of things when you're putting these together.
I'll just do anything as long as it looks like it should.
Yes.
I guess.
Oh, and I think that's absolutely amazing that you were able to draw from all these mediums, and you're able then to bring them together and then create something this fabulous.
Thanks.
So then we're also going to go to the Seattle skyline, which is this one. And if you could hold this one and tell us a little bit about this particular piece. Because again, I love the texture of this.
Yeah, it has a lot of texture. And what it started out as is I visited Seattle and I found this park across the water which gave me a beautiful view of the Seattle skyline. And I also do photography, but the picture was with I didn't have my good camera and I only had a cell phone, so the picture wasn't really good quality. And I said, well, if I want to show the Seattle skyline, I guess I better paint it. So I drew in ink the skyline on watercolor paper, and then I watercolored it, and with splotches and splatters and things, everything. And then I cut it out, and then I pasted it with acrylic on canvas, this canvas, wrap canvas, and then the water below it is tissue paper, and the sky above it is from modeling paste.
So we can kind of see on the edge is that there's a little bit of roughness and loose along the edges, which actually adds, I think, to it. And what is it that we're seeing there is this because I can kind of see the edge of the paper that you're talking about here. Is this like the tissue paper that we're seeing that gets wrapped around to here?
Well, I don't remember exactly what. I think I had a piece of paper down here, and it kind of actually, see that little bump there, it kind of wrinkled, and that's the main reason the modeling place came about, because I wanted to hide it.
Well,
I mean, you just have to do what you have to do. But these are just pieces of paper that came around. I don't know where they came from, to tell you the truth. Just something I somehow stuck on there.
So now when you're using this modeling paste, did you paint over that then once it was put on and it dries and hardens?
Yeah.
And it adds such incredible texture to it. And then again, the texture that you get, just this wave-like appearance just from the tissue paper. Again,
it's a lot of fun to use, and it's real easy to use.
I think it would be a lot of fun. Now you have some detail that's actually in the, oh gosh, what do they call this in Seattle?
Space needle.
The Space Needle.
Yeah.
So is that ink work that you have that you've kind of drawn in a little bit of detail there?
Mm-hmm.
And the same, you have a little bit more detail on the buildings, and that's your ink work.
Yeah.
So you're so multi-talented here.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to one that is we're just going to call it a straight up collage, which is taking various pieces from magazines and putting it together, and that is New York, New York. And this one is a really amazing piece. So if you could tell us a little bit about this process.
Well, I started out, I love city scenes, and I saw some YouTube videos of people making city scenes, either with acrylic or however they did it. And I thought I wanted to do that too, so I just started cutting out paper and putting it up like a city. And it kind of came about, well, what do people like in New York? They like to shop. So, and I saw that I had Macy's and all these different names, brand names. So I cut them out, put them up, and I didn't know how to cut out cars without it looking funny. So I just made little squares, and it's kind of abstract. But I put people in there, which was hard to make them
Yes.
because they're so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and it was kind of based on what I sang mostly when I was working on it was New York, New York, it's a hell of a town.
Yes, definitely. Well, now, because you have more precise lines in this one, so you're actually using scissors to cut these pieces?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have a collection of magazines that you go through and you just kind of pick out what you think you're going to be using?
I have tons of magazines. I have bags of magazines. I have bankers' boxes full of magazines.
Well, and I just brought you some more to add to your collection.
Yeah. And they look cool, too.
Yeah, well, I get enough of them, so hey, I'll just give you a ring up when I'm about ready to toss them out and say, come on over and see if you find anything you want. So now on this, you also have a lot of words that you've put in this one, too, which to me is great because whenever I think of Times Square in New York, it's just lights and words coming at you.
Well, I would rather have it be words. When I went to New York, my mom took me there when I was a little kid. All I remember were legs going by me.
Oh, that's true. Or I always feel like I'm an ant and everybody's coming out of the ant pile and rushing down that street.
Exactly.
But and I do love the people, and it is always very hard to depict people, especially when you decide you're not going to be exact, and how you've captured them is a very unique way. I love it.
Good.
Then we're going to talk about using National Geographic. And so tell me, what is unique about National Geographic?
National Geographic is the only magazine that you can melt the ink in their magazine pages using a product called Citrosolve.
I'm going to interrupt. Melt the ink.
It basically melts the ink because it's like caustic and just melts it.
So explain this process. You have a National Geographic magazine. So how are you now going to do this?
I take a National Geographic magazine. I get in a well-ventilated area because the Citrosolve really has a very strong odor. And I take the Citrosolve, which you can buy in art stores now because it's been used so extensively for just this. And you pour a little bit of it, maybe an ounce, on each page that has a lot of color.
Now when you pour it, are you holding the magazine and you're just pouring it over it? Or are you laying it down and pouring it over?
You're laying it down and just pour it over the page.
Okay.
And then turn the page and pour it again, turn the page, pour it again, on all the color pages. And then you close the magazine and let it sit for 15 minutes. Open it up and you have crazy designs that are no longer look anything like the picture that National Geographic published.
And you have an example of this, which is our scuba diver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard to believe this background is actually through that process of a National Geographic magazine.
Exactly.
So this must be when you're finished and you've done this and now you're going to open it up. What an absolute fun process of the discovery of the colors that you've just created.
It is. It's amazing. There was even one that looked like a garden. It had these wild things blooming up. And I cut that out in a special design and framed it and called it Moonrise Garden because it looked like a garden on the moon.
Now, because you're doing them all together and then closing it, does one page run into the other, or does it just pretty much stay with whatever's on the front of the page?
I think it pretty well stays on what's on the front.
Mm-hmm.
But it also melts what's on the opposite side if there's
Okay.
color too.
So again, this is all one sheet of paper that's in your diver. And what is the name of this piece that you call this?
Exploring Atlantis.
Oh, Exploring Atlantis. And, actually, it does look that. I can see images there of what you would think of finding Atlantis. So tell me then, is this just one sheet then that you had and you've looked at it and go, oh, now I need to put something in here?
Yeah. I just cut out a square, and that, I mean, maybe the other parts of it, like above it or on the side, maybe it was different, or maybe it had words messed up, or maybe it didn't melt as much, or whatever. I cut out the best usable part, and it did look like under the ocean, and I thought a scuba diver would be great on there. So I drew the scuba diver. I drew him from some image that I saw on the computer, and then I colored him in with ink and put him on there.
And put him on. So you cut him out then and put him on there. And let me tell you, he is very, very small, so cutting, and believe me, I'm an expert in scissors, that would be very hard to do. And then to position him so that you have him swimming along. So then the other one that I find is amazing is your acrylic pour. Now first tell me about the acrylic pour process.
Well, a lot of people nowadays, for an acrylic pour, what they're doing is taking a cup and putting in a cup of, like a bunch of blue, for example, and then they pour in red on top of it, and then they pour in white on top of that. And then they turn the cup over on canvas, and it runs out and makes a design. And that's what they call acrylic pour now, pretty much. What I was doing was I was taking acrylic and putting it with pouring medium, which made it a lot easier to run. And I would put it on a mirror, or I would put it on this example, I put it on a piece of kind of shiny cardboard and just let it run, and then maybe even streaked it a little bit with a credit card.
So then, and again, you're looking at this and you're thinking mountains,
Yeah.
and you created then the climbers. And again, was this, how did you draw these out again using black ink?
I drew them out, and they're of some kind of magazine paper or something, drew them out and then colored them in with black ink. The rope is just, I just took a real fine ink pen and made the line.
Well, I love it because it brings a definite definition to something that would have otherwise be completely abstract, and brings some definite meaning to it, and I really like that one. Now, I want to thank you so very much for joining us, and I would like you to have an opportunity to tell our viewers how they can find you on the studio tour, as well as they can get in contact with you and maybe talking about your work, because it is really, really very interesting.
Well, thank you. Yes, my telephone number is 530-878-1573. My website is marychris-hines.pixels.com.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And I want to thank you for tuning in to WAVE Channel 20, Auburn Community Television, and this episode of Meet the Artist. Meet the Artist is sponsored by the North Auburn Artist, and the Placer Arts supports the Placer Arts Studio Tours. Both are designed to give you an opportunity to not only meet the artist, but also learn about mediums, and also have a chance to see the people in their studios. Maybe if you take these opportunities, you will find, like Mary Chris has done, that artist within. And maybe next fall, I'll be interviewing you.